Sometimes I think we should just start things very traditionally.
Like with an intro?
Yeah, like with a hello and welcome to Pizza Toast.
Hello and welcome to Pizza Toast, your one-stop shop for great YA slop. I'm Phil.
I'm Christy. That wasn't bad.
Hey, you know what? We do like talking about YA, books, movies, Thanksgiving floats. We run the gamut from A to Thanksgiving.
Is this the easiest gamut we ever had to run?
Book comes out, 50 years later, movie comes out, the end.
That's basically the gist of it. Also, we read book and then movie is out.
Right. We like to have a little context for our casual movie-going experience. You saw this movie last night?
I saw this movie last night by myself.
What time was your showing?
It was at 6:30.
So at 6:30, it's 5:30 here. You went to the movies.
I did.
Your movie gets out as my movie is beginning, because I was at the theater
really?
last night at 7:30. It would have been 8:30.
Yeah, I was just getting out.
Yeah, because getting into the movies is not always easy for me. So,
well, of course. I mean, I this time had a very easy time because there were tons of showtimes of this one. This isn't exactly like an indie movie, so
it's weird. There's not a ton of showtimes here for it. There's like 2 showings per day at AMC.
Oh yeah, I would say there are not as many as there would be for like your Guardians of the Galaxy, etc.
Really? This doesn't have the cultural footprint of What's weird is this does have a bigger cultural footprint than Guardians of the Galaxy for the first 40 years of the book's existence, and then now more people know who Rocket Raccoon is than Margaret.
I think there's like a 3 to 5 showings a day per theater average, I would say here, which isn't a lot. But it's at every theater. Like, I was able to see, or almost everyone. I was able to see this at one of the smallish, more indie ones in my neighborhood that does get some blockbusters.
So I was supposed to see this originally with Alana, and then it's such a complicated couple of weeks, we weren't going to be able to get to it for a while. So I saw, but she's already been invited to see it with a friend. And then Mitzi has been invited to see it with friends. So clearly this is the social outing of the year, except in my showing where I had a couple of families in the rows ahead of me. And then I'm sitting in the very back row with my backpack and my notebook so I can like jot notes down. In front of me, 1 row ahead of me and a little to the right, is another guy roughly my age by himself with a backpack. And I'm like, how many podcasts are out there?
Is he also doing a podcast that is covering Are You There, Gotta See Margaret? Because he could be.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why
not?
I was so tempted to lean over and be like, what's the title of your show? He's like, oh, it's Gilly Hopkins cast. This is a bonus episode we're doing for our Patreon.
So there's I think like a guardian, like a mom and 2 Mitzi aged girls in front of me.
Yeah.
At this showing.
Yeah.
And then there were 2 other adults by themselves, which I was really pleased to see.
Yeah, there was a family, there was a few adults and like a bunch of like tween age girls in the row ahead of me, like a little over to the right. And I'm not sure, I was trying to gauge their reactions through the whole movie. There was a few chuckles from them. And a couple of like, what?
One of the girls laughed at every joke I laughed at. And I was like, this girl is being raised well. She has the perfect sense of humor.
But there was a woman a few rows ahead of me. I wasn't able to really see their group, who was very vocal, not at the comedy, but at like the like emotional moments, but not the like big emotional moments. But I was hearing a lot of oh, like through the whole movie. So.
Were you not doing that?
I was not doing that.
I didn't make a lot of noise. I didn't say anything. I just laughed when I laughed, which was a lot.
I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I didn't want people to look around and be like, there's a guy here by himself.
Whereas, I mean, being girl, I felt very comfortable at this movie alone.
Yeah, I felt like people would look at me and be like, oh, that guy's trying to figure it all out. A little late in life. Me like, okay, I hope this movie teaches me what them periods is all about.
Instead, you found yourself finding out a lot about Rachel McAdams.
I found out a whole lot about the character of Rachel McAdams. I also found out a whole lot about the director and her writing history and how this movie is basically her remake of The Edge of 17.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about Are You There, God? It's Me,
Margaret.
Margaret.
We're talking about, it came out on Friday? Did it come out on Friday?
Yeah.
We really jumped on it. I saw Beau is Afraid before this, and per my Letterboxd star ratings alone, this is a better movie than Beau is Afraid.
I'm looking at my Letterboxd, just seeing like what I've watched. I had the weirdest April. It was all like One Crazy Summer, Evil Dead Rise, Fast and Furious, and then Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. But I would say that I ranked The Edge of 17 above Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. But I ranked Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret above Evil Dead Rise.
Okay, this is an interesting breakdown. Beau is Afraid, you see, is a 5-act film that's sort of an odyssey, sort of like a horror comedy. Lots of people will hate it.
Yeah.
They will have really good reasons to hate it. I will kind of like it. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is like a 105-minute warm hug.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to walk out of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret having hated it. I can't imagine anyone being like, forget it. Like, I have a friend on Facebook who walked out of Beau is Afraid after the first 20 minutes.
Yep, I have the exact same thing, and I think there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah, I haven't seen Beau is Afraid. I cannot imagine that I can't imagine Ari Aster creating a contentious film, though. I don't know what's up. His previous movies have been fairly middle of the road, just like appeal to everyone, kind of
super normal.
of
yeah, 4-quadrant stuff this man is coming out with. Is this movie 4-quadrant, by the way, or would I feel like Young Boy might be young bored at this movie.
I would think that Young Boy might be less into this movie than Young Boy is into the novel. I think if a boy picked up, and by boy, we're being very general here, a young male identifying preteen might pick up the book and be like, I get this. Like, this is informing me about things that I have no idea about, gain a little bit of empathy. The movie is a little more inside baseball, like, because you're not in Margaret's head the whole time, you kind of got to be on board with it. And if you're not on board with it, I can imagine someone just being like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, Rachel McAdams takes up like 20% of the film. You find out a lot about the mom.
Well, no, this is not a movie that's just about Margaret. This is a movie that's about Margaret. It is also about her mom. Like, it is not about Margaret's relationship with her mom that much either. It's about Margaret's mom's relationship with who she is as a person.
This is also about Kathy Bates not being a Jewish grandmother from New York. I am very sorry, but Kathy Bates is from the American South. She went to New York to study theater. You put those two things together, I guess you get the Midwest, because I didn't.
You do. It's precisely what you get. Actually, the Rachel McAdams parents feel a lot more Southern, but I would say that Kathy Bates feels very Midwestern. Yeah, she can't say l'chaim to save her life.
She can't say l'chaim, and she says it about 50 times.
She says it so many times. Oh man!
But I do like Kathy Bates. I like her performance. I think she gives a spot on performance. She just can't. She's not Jewish.
I'm like writing this backstory for myself where her husband was Jewish. But also Benny Safdie is like very Jewish.
He's the most Jewish person who's ever been on screen.
I just realized I said that, and I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
No, I would. I watched. I mean, they have him done. Well, let's go back to the beginning. We're jumping all over the place because I really want to ask you: have you seen The Edge of 17?
I haven't. It's been on my DVR for like 3 years.
Phenomenal flick.
I've heard it's very, very good. Big Haley Steinfeld person over here. So
the director of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, writer-director, Kelly Freeman Craig. She's like best friends with James L. Brooks, I guess. He gave her big break. She had a screenplay of hers produced called Post Grad, an Alexis Bledel movie.
I remember that movie.
Yeah, starring Alexis Bledel, Michael Keaton, Jane Lynch, Carol Burnett, J.K. Simmons, Craig Robinson, Fred Armisen, Andy Daly, Dimitri Martin, like, and it's apparently just the worst movie ever made. It has an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I skimmed through a little bit of it, and it's not directed by her. It's directed by Vicky Jensen, the director of Shrek, who they were like,
weird.
You directed the first animated film to win an Academy Award. Here's your live action film. She directs it. It's a flop. They're like, you'll never work in this town again. But it made me realize that but Roger Ebert really liked it. And it made me realize that I think Kelly Freeman Craig needs to direct her own screenplays. Because by themselves, her screenplays are extremely stylized. She has this sort of like post Joss Whedon like banter that she writes. And watching Edge of 17 and then watching Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, I'm like, this woman knows how to direct kids really well. She gets some performances. In Edge of 17, she gets performances out of like the flashback versions of Haley Steinfeld and Friend. And she gets performances out of these preteens, or I guess they're actually teenage actors, but these kids, it was like watching like a Fassbender film. I was like, it's like so naturalistic.
How good is the kid who plays Philip Leroy for about 5 minutes? Like, the 2 scenes that kid has are spellbinding.
The kid who plays Moose I
love him.
I was just like, I can't believe this kid is as good as he is. Well, all the kids. We'll talk about the MVP of this movie, the secret MVP of this movie, who is our friend from Mockingjay.
Is she the secret MVP though? See, I think the secret MVP is Gretchen.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. But the fact that she carries so much of her scenes, she plays the mean girl without playing a mean girl, actually makes the end not work for me because I find her so sympathetic. But
I mean, the end works for me in different ways, but we'll get there.
So yeah, Kelly Freeman Craig, she directs Edge of 17, it's a great movie. You really should see it. It doesn't always work. It's a little too stylized for my taste at times. Like the dialogue, it's so witty. But Woody Harrelson,
somebody who's like maybe third or fourth favorite movie is Josie and the Pussycats. I think I'll be okay.
Woody Harrelson's amazing in it. Haley Steinfeld should have played Margaret if she had been discovered before True Grit. If she had been discovered,
she would have been so good.
She is basically Edge of 17 is basically, it's a girl going through it, having trouble with friends, talks to God, wants to know why God isn't helping out in her life, meets boy, but also meets popular boy, has awkward encounters with all, parent going through emotional. You learn a lot more about the mom than you thought you were going to. Like it's very much the same. It's very much a YA novel to like today's Judy Blume type novels. It's it's got a lot of swearing. It's very rated R. Deals very explicitly with sex. But it's obviously aimed at kids, at teens. So I can see why someone was like, she's the perfect director for Margaret. She gets it. I don't know why it took them this long to get her another movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I'm gonna go out on a limb early on and say that I like this movie.
I think you like this movie more than I do.
I think I definitely do, and I think there's probably a pretty simple reason why, but I think we can pinpoint it over time.
So this movie, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. We have James L. Brooks on board again. We get the Gracie Films logo at the beginning.
Gracie Films logo up top here.
Yeah. Shh.
Yes, we just finished an episode of The Simpsons.
Yep. It's really jarring because
it's very weird. I don't associate it with going to the movies.
We have to say that between Edge of 17 and this, Kelly Freeman Craig wrote the screenplay for Bumblebee, which was substantially rewritten. She wrote the screenplay for Scoob, which was substantially rewritten. And she did an untitled Edge of 17 web series for YouTube Premium, which is weird. So it seems like
strange.
She'd been trying to get another thing off the ground. She'd been doing a lot of screenplays that weren't her screenplays by the time they hit the screen. But she has 2 movies coming out this year. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and the execrable Ordinary Angels, a movie about Hilary Swank convincing a town to shovel snow to save the life. It's a Christian movie starring Hilary Swank, a very, very Christian movie.
It's so weird that she's making a Christian movie after making this movie, but will.
From the director of The Case for Christ, The Unbreakable Boy, Do You Believe? But I guess, you got to get that money. You got to get paid.
Get that bag, Kelly Freeman Craig. Yeah. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Are You There, God? It's Me? So what's this movie about?
This movie is about exactly the same things the book is about, except it's also about Margaret's mother. Right.
Take the novel, add some stuff about the mom. That's it. Like, it's scene for scene, except until the confrontation with the grandparents. It's the almost exactly the novel.
Yeah. And then it smooths out a lot of the edges. See, okay, I think the thing that I was okay with, and you probably didn't like quite as much, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this defangs the book a bit.
Yeah. We've experienced this with first-person narrator books before.
Oh, yes.
You slap them onto the screen. That sounded ruder. You put them up on screen, and if you don't go the voiceover route, which they do a little bit in this, but not throughout, if you don't go the voiceover route, you're suddenly left without insight into the main characters, like what's going on in their head. So when you see stuff just sort of play out, you lose. If you're not careful, you can lose a little bit of the edge to what's happening.
They also just drop a scene that has edge and add one that is like very very happy, very ending of Harriet the Spy.
I was just going to say I know exactly what scene they dropped, and I was very upset, and I know which scene they added, and I was very confused and thought this is a scene from Harriet the Spy. I honestly thought the movie was going to end right there, and I was like,
which I wouldn't have been like, I was okay with there being a little bit more at the end. Yeah, so this follows the book very very faithfully for a long time. Like
it adds bookends with summer camp, which I appreciated.
I really like that. Yeah. We get a little bit more of the anguish that a New York kid would feel when moving to New Jersey. Yeah. Because we're very much taught that New Jersey is bad, and her grandmother does reinforce that New Jersey is bad. I do think it's important to note that Kathy Bates's wardrobe in this movie is immaculate.
I agree. I also want to note that they only seem to have been concerned with costuming people in period clothes about 75% of the time.
Yeah, it's a sometimes thing. Rachel McAdams' clothing is very, like, now.
Yeah. I kept forgetting this was supposed to be set in 1970. Oh, yeah. Absolutely no reason for this to be set in 1970. The era does not come into play at all, except for the soundtrack, which is the bomb. The
soundtrack is so good, and Hans Zimmer did the score, and when his name hit in the credits, I was like, oh yeah, because this is a very, like, it's a very deft and elegant and simple score. Like,
and of course we have to always put Hans Zimmer's name in dramatic quotes.
Oh no, I know.
We don't know how much Hans Zimmer was actually in the studio.
It's one of his little lackeys, but it has a little, like, it's nice. It has like a little bop to it the whole time, and then they'll drop like Venus or Son of a Preacher Man in there, and you're like, yeah, this rules.
If you're looking for the soundtrack, it doesn't exist.
Oh.
But please know that on Spotify I have assembled the complete soundtrack because I looked for it, and all that was, those fake Spotify playlists that are like just there to get you to listen to a bunch of unrelated music. That's all that exists. Find Phil Gonzalez's if you want to listen to all the songs from When You There, I Guess Me, Margaret.
I mean, I do want to do that.
It's a very good playlist.
I play one of my favorite songs in the world over the end credits, which is Cat Stevens' The Wind.
The Wind, which was also featured in Almost
Famous.
Is it Almost Famous? I thought it was a Wes Anderson movie.
It's also in Rushmore. Yeah,
Rushmore. See, I always associate it with Rushmore.
I know it from Rushmore. In Almost Famous, it's just a silent scene of Kate Hudson dancing with that, like the dialogue free with just that song.
Yeah, this movie feels a lot like it was made in the early 2000s. I think that's what I was feeling. It felt like kind of a bit of a throwback to that era. But in any case, so it's the story of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, starring Ant Girl herself, Abby Ryder Forston, who is the second Ant Girl, I think.
She's the second one. I think that she might be the most adorable child. I think she's the cutest tween. She has the best face. Whenever they do the we must increase our busts, she has the most intense expression that anyone has ever had on their face. She's so funny. Like, she's very effortlessly funny, too. And just an incredibly expressive face. Like, there are scenes that would not land if she did not, like, feel every emotion in the world throughout them.
Yeah, she has... I mean, we knew this from her performance in Ant-Man, but... she has just a natural quality on screen and a pair of eyebrows that just she knows how to use. There's not a lot of family resemblance here. I will say that. Like, I was a little thrown because I don't think she looks like either of the parents very much, but she does look like she could be a half Jewish kid from New York.
Part of what still sold me on it. Like, it was like, okay, I will buy that these are her parents because she has such that vibe. Like,
right.
And also, she and Rachel McAdams work very well together. There's not a lot of her and Benny Safdie, because Benny Safdie is in this movie, but not... aside from the part where he is explaining to Rachel McAdams that her parents were abusive, which is a really hard scene.
Yeah.
Which he sells. Aside from that, he's not in it a ton. He does also hurt his hand on the lawnmower. I was really glad we didn't see it.
We do see some blood, but it's not... we don't dwell on it. We
see his hand all wrapped up, and then we see Moose happily mowing the lawn in the background, and it's a good little goof.
Rachel McAdams, who is not Jennifer Garner, but she is now playing all of Jennifer Garner's roles.
She is, and I'm not mad about it as long as she continues getting work.
She goes so hard in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I was just like, I'm getting such amazing acting from Rachel McAdams that I am so grateful for, but that I actually don't need in this.
You don't need it in this movie, no.
The problem is, I feel like Rachel McAdams, Benny Safdie, Kathy Bates are in another movie. They're in a different movie. They're in just another movie. They're in an episode of the Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret show that's all about the parents, like a special breakaway episode. The thing about the book is you don't really know there's a distance between Margaret and her parents. They're that kind of 1970s like parent, like we're doing our own thing. We've read the books. We know how to raise kids. There's such a storybook family in the movie. Like, it starts off with a lot of group hugs. There's a lot of like earnest talks that I'm like, I don't feel like this is an actual 1970s family. I was hoping for a little more isolation on Margaret's part. Instead, we get the greatest parents in the world. I don't understand why they're not clued into what... They don't strike me as parents who would be like, don't worry about religion. We'll like Benny Safdie at one point's like, I stopped going to temple because, you want to know why I stopped going to temple? Because I went to temple. It's boring. It stinks. And I'm like, and you don't understand any of the words. And I'm like, there's no way you didn't get bar mitzvahed. There's no way you didn't go to Hebrew school. There's no way, considering your mom wasn't forcing you to learn Hebrew. You know what these prayers mean. You went to temple until you went off to college. Like, don't give me this, Benny. They add all this stuff that's not in the book. I always assumed that he decided not to go the Jewish route because of Rachel McAdams' experience with religion.
That was my guess too. That was, I mean, like, but the thing is, I didn't even really have a guess about her dad. There is so little there in the book.
Yeah.
And now I find out that he's a perfect angel, and he's married to a perfect lady who is actually the kind of, like, she is the woman who's like, okay, her arc in miniature.
Yes, which isn't in the book.
Was an art teacher and is giving up being an art teacher in order to be a stay-at-home mom. She joins multiple PTA committees. She overextends herself in this way, and she begins to realize that she really misses the thing that she loves, the thing she finds fulfillment in. And by the end, she and Margaret have a really nice emotional moment where she says it's exhausting trying so hard all the time, right? And at that point, she decides that she's going to, off-screen, decides she's going to be an art teacher again. Teaching art classes.
An art teacher, apparently in 2019, because that art school class looks like it just looks like a bunch of people in the 2000s.
Yeah, it
like
absolutely
the guy
does.
she goes up to a guy and is like, "Oh, you're doing really well in your art." And I'm like, that guy just looks like he stepped out of a coffee shop in my neighborhood. Like, the hair is wrong. It's really weird. They focus so much on hair and costume and setting sometimes.
Certainly with the girls. Certainly with Margaret and her friends.
I sometimes agree.
Not even all the kids in the class, I'll give you that. Because, like, Laura Danker is not dressed like she's in the 70s.
Why did they cast a 30-year-old as Laura Danker?
Okay, I was going to ask you about this. Because, okay, as we know, Laura Danker is the girl who looks older than everyone else. The one who had to start wearing a bra in 4th grade. She's twice the size of everybody else here. It's not that she looks just a little bit older. It's that she looks like she's in her 20s. And it's weird. Yeah,
like the confrontation between the two of them, which is a well-done scene.
It is.
Still, if someone drove by, they'd be like, "Why is that woman yelling at that little kid?" Like, it looks, and I don't know.
I don't threatening.
Trust me, I started trying to find out the age of the actress, and then I creeped myself out because I was like,
I understand.
Okay, it's not out there. Like, and I'm wondering if they're keeping her age under wraps for a reason. I don't know, but yeah, it looks like they cast a 20-year-old. And I could just be part of the problem. Maybe she is 15,
No, she looks like she's 20. I'll give you that. And thank goodness they cut the teacher being into Laura Danker stuff. I was some of the things they cut, I'm like, I'm so grateful for this.
Yes. Well, they cut, okay, so Mr. Benedict is the same guy. He has the same lines, but they cast a much cooler actor as Mr. Benedict. Echo Kellum.
This is a man who has a lot of the same vibes as Lakeith Stanfield, but it isn't as smooth. He's still very cool.
Right, yeah, from TV's Arrow.
I like him. I think he's fun.
But they don't, at the very end, she goes up to him and she's like, "I just want you to know you're a great teacher." And he's like, "Really? I don't feel like I was a great teacher." She's like, "You're a great teacher." And I'm like, really? Because
that was a weird thing. I don't think that needed to be there.
He didn't do anything more than Mr. Benedict does in the book, which is
they wanted to put a button on his story, which doesn't exist.
Like, Mr. Benedict in the book is super awkward. Like, he doesn't have much of an arc in the book either, but
the kids don't make fun of him here either, so they're also removing that, which again, I like. He's black. I think it would have looked racially toned if they'd left it in. So I'm glad they didn't. Oh, but there is the casting is race blind. Not that there's no point in the book where they're clarifying, but
I will go so far as to say casting is actually racially conscious because Janie is black in the movie, and they don't just make her black. When you see her getting ready for the party, her mom is doing her hair, and it's very, very consciously done. This is an African American mom taking care of her daughter's African American hair in a very like detailed way. You're seeing all these kids get ready in very culturally specific ways. You see Gretchen's house. There's a menorah up. You see like it's very much a Jewish household. You see Janie's house is very much a Black American household. I appreciated that a lot. I was like, okay, this is like they are aware that these characters aren't interchangeable, and I liked
Janie
that.
is doing the like almost special occasion, often once a week or less frequent, like hot comb and
Yes.
style, and it's like you can tell this is routine for her, but
Mm-hmm.
it's
it
cool.
Stinks. It's like she's like not happy with it because she's
No.
like, my mom's like, stop squirming.
Also, one of the churches that Margaret goes to is the gospel church, like the black church, and that scene did make me like that made me very happy. Like also, the two of them pairing off and being friends felt very organic in this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about our group of girls because they are the highlight of the movie every time they're on screen.
Oh, they're all so fun.
Yeah.
Like Gretchen does so much with so little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have these four powerhouses. We have Amari Alexis Price as Janie, and she is adorable and hilarious, and this is like her first screen credit. This is her first like screen acting credit, and she's hilarious.
Simply wild to me. Yeah, all of these kids.
Gretchen is played by Catherine Malin Kupferer. Kupferer. Catherine Kupferer. And you've already said it. She's amazing. She is so good.
She's so funny. There's a scene during the montage of all of them getting ready for the birthday party. Her mother is taking a lot of photos of her, and she keeps doing the oh stop it, and then did like striking a wild pose, and I think that made me smile more than anything else in the movie.
I grinned like a ridiculous guy.
I looked very silly during this movie.
And I'm going to go back to what I said about the director, because there are moments in this movie where you can tell she worked with these actors to get them out of their heads, to make sure they don't sound like kid actors. But it's also not just a bunch of like goofy improv. They're establishing character, they're setting the scene. But moments like that are so spontaneous and delightful. But also like there's a moment where Margaret first shows up for I can't remember, the special kids club or whatever it's called.
They don't call it anything in this, which I like.
Yeah. She first shows up and the girls are already having a conversation. They're actually like bad mouthing what's her face.
They're always talking about Laura Danker. Nancy says we're talking about Laura Danker again.
Yeah. They're bad mouthing Laura Danker, but they're doing it in this sort of like goofy. They sound like a bunch of kids, and it's like watching. It's gonna age me, and B, a lot of people are going to be like, that's not a recommendation, but it reminds me of the Goonies when the kids are just kind of all talking over each other, and you're like, yeah, this is just what a bunch of kids sound like.
It reminds me of Super 8. There's one. Like kids,
okay, yeah.
Because J.J. Abrams is a lot of things, but one of them is he's really good at directing kids, and it has that feel of like these kids will say literally anything, and if an adult were listening, they would not be able to pick up the thread of this conversation. But it's like fun to hear them bantering, and we haven't even talked about Nancy, because I was going to say Nancy is this is such a specific kind of kid.
Yes.
That I have met, that I have babysat, that I probably was in classes with, and I love her. She's so good.
Let's talk about our Hunger Games alum, Elle Graham, who we all saw her.
We all saw her get murdered.
We all saw her get murdered in Mockingjay. Yes. She looks over her shoulder at one point. She's a little girl wearing pink or yellow.
She's wearing a bright color.
Yes. Yeah, yellow coat. She's wearing a yellow coat. She looks over her shoulder, and you see her get like nuked. And that's
she's about to point out that it's Katniss. You can see it.
Right. Then she goes on to play the daughter of Chief Hopper, who I guess died in Stranger Things.
Yeah, she's in the first episode, I think.
Yeah, so she played like cute little girl a lot. And then she's in the much like the Lost Swamp Thing TV series. But she plays Nancy Wheeler, who's, speaking of Stranger Things, whose name they didn't change, thank God. And this could have been the mean girl from Harriet the Spy. But it's not. She's just a goofy kid with a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm. She's quite insecure.
Yeah. And
she tries to mask that by having a lot of bravado for an 11-year-old girl. She's the self-made leader of the group. She does everything that Nancy does in the book, like all of the kind of mean, spiteful things, but also the fun things. Mm-hmm. Also, like organizing this club, befriending Margaret in the first place. Margaret's not sure how much, like, initially she does the I'm not even sure if Nancy likes me thing, but Nancy's clearly pretty attached to Margaret.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of led to believe that, like, Nancy surrounds herself with kids. The first thing you ever see her do is they jump through the sprinklers to a Bridget Bardot song, and she says, like, follow me, do what I do. And you're like, okay, that's her character. Like, she needs kids to lead, but she's not unlikable. You can see why these kids are friends with her, why they're all friends, because they have a rapport. They're somewhat supportive, but they're 11, like, or however old they are.
They're supposed to be 11. Margaret turns 12.
Aren't they going into 8th grade? Is that?
They might be going into 7th. It depends, because like some.
I thought they say 8th grade at the end. 8th grade.
Say graduate, or they say junior high.
Oh, okay.
And that can vary from school to school.
I didn't write it down, so maybe you're right. But yeah, they're kids. They're dumb kids, which is why at the end, when you get this added scene where the last of Nancy's friends walks away or whatever, and she's left there, like, all alone, I was like, they did her dirty. Like,
she didn't deserve that. But Laura Danker being involved, I wanted that olive branch extended very badly in the book. I was sad when it wasn't. So I was like, well, mission accomplished.
Okay, so there's the scene that they cut and the scene that they added. They cut the confrontation with Moose, which is one of my favorite scenes in the book. The scene where she's like, you make out with Laura Danker behind the A&P, and he's just like, you believe everything you're told. I like that scene because it adds a little dimension to Moose. He's not just the cute boy. He's like a kid with feelings, and he gets hurt, and it takes the Laura Danker. She thinks that Laura Danker is like, she knows she hurt Laura's feelings, but she doesn't realize that Nancy has been lying about everything. Mm-hmm. And to me, the Moose confrontation is where she realizes, oh my God, like, everything Nancy has been telling me is probably a lie.
Whereas I think here they push that onto the period thing.
Right.
But the implication is because Nancy lied about her period and couldn't even admit it when she got it in front of Margaret, that's where it's indicated. And then they aren't really friendly after that.
But Elle Graham gives such a heartbreaking performance.
Oh, it's so sad.
She is crying so realistically. Like, I don't know how to say it. She's ashamed. She's embarrassed. She's scared. She wants her mom. My heart broke so much for her watching that scene that I was not mad at her anymore. Margaret in the book doesn't get to see that. She's outside the stall. We as the audience are brought into the stall and get to see poor Nancy Wheeler crying on the toilet. And maybe it's just because I have a 12-year-old. And so, like, I see this happening and I just want to hug this little girl and be like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're going to be fine. And then you get to see her mom, who up until then has been like, just kind of like the type A personality. Like,
oh yeah. The dropping of the facade with the mom being very much mom, doing the, I can't help you unless you tell me what's wrong. Like that. I find like the combination of loving and stern in that moment very endearing and very real.
because we've only seen Mrs. Wheeler played by Kate McCluggage, who you might know from one episode of The First Lady, or maybe two episodes of Turn, Washington's Spies.
These aren't shows.
These aren't shows.
Making this up.
These don't exist. Cryptid, I don't know. Maybe one episode of Chicago Justice. She's very good. And yes, you see her a lot more in this than you do in the book, because she has a lot of scenes with Rachel McAdams. And she looks like she stepped out of 1970. Like,
she does.
She's totally done up the whole time. Yeah, you use the word drop the facade, and it's beautiful. Like, she walks in, and you're like, she only is concerned about her daughter. She's very worried. When she realizes it's her period, she then backs up a little bit because she's like, okay, she's not dying. But it's such a beautiful little scene that I'm like, Margaret, stop being angry. Like, Margaret, grow up a little bit. Your friend was, okay, she lied to you, but it's not that big a deal, Margaret.
I mean, Margaret's about to have some other stuff going on.
She is. Oh, boy.
We're skipping over a couple of things, which is fine. I mean, she goes to temple with her grandma, her non-Jewish grandma. She goes to
no, she goes to temple with her Jewish grandma.
Yeah.
I was like, she wouldn't go to temple with her non-Jewish grandma.
But no, I was saying just like Kathy Bates is not Jewish. This is all.
Oh, her right. Hey, she says Shabbat Shalom. There's an episode of the TV series Friday Night Dinner, which is one of the funniest British TV series to ever come out, where it's about a Jewish family, where their neighbor comes over for Friday Night Dinner one night, and he keeps saying shalom to everyone. And they're like very embarrassed to have him there. And he keeps saying, shalom, shalom, shalom. He's trying to be Jewish like them. And it is hilarious and awkward. And that's what it reminded me of every time Kathy Bates said to someone, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.
She says it like, very waspy. I was able to nail the l'chaim a little bit better than she did, and I'm very proud of myself for that.
Maybe it's because I knew in the last beautiful years of her life, I knew Alana's grandmother very well, and I wanted to see Alana's grandmother up on the screen. This like woman who lived by herself for many decades, like whose husband died many decades ago, who's just kind of been there for her granddaughter now. Like, I wanted to see Rena up on screen, and I didn't. I saw Kathy Bates, who again, she's a fried green tomato. She's a misery. She's a wonderful actress.
She does. I mean, she pulls off like nurturing, caring, slightly overbearing grandmother very well. Like, she's doing good.
She's a goof. The scene between the two of them in bed is so sweet.
It's incredibly sweet.
Yeah. She
does the same thing as she does in the book, where she goes and sees shows with her grandma.
She goes and sees shows they don't have to get the rights to.
Yeah, she goes and sees Pirates of Penzance. Why not?
She's not taking her to see Company. She's taking her to see Pirates of Penzance in the park, and she's taking her to see Radio City Music Hall with library music over it. I know this because the library music is on Spotify.
They also they walk past a poster for Hello Dolly.
They do. Probably
the Ethel Merman Hello Dolly. I liked that little period piece.
What'd you say?
It was the Ethel Merman Hello Dolly.
Yeah, Carol Channing was sick that week.
So. Yeah, there's like a few other things happen here or there. We get the Laura Danker thing, we get the et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about the grandparents.
So the grandparents, they tweak this moment a little bit because they have Kathy Bates show up with Mr. Benjamin, rhymes with cinnamon, during the grandparents' visit, which fixes a little, like, makes it a little less clunky plot-wise, but also, well, we'll talk about it. But
so I'm wondering, like, this is one thing that doesn't work perfectly for me. Margaret's explosion at the end of this scene. And then, like, her not wanting to talk to her parents, her becoming very drawn in for a bit, that works really well for me. I think that's on the performance there, and a little bit on the, like, the writing of the speech, her not wanting, like, screaming out how she doesn't want to be anything. Great. 5 stars. Before that, here, they don't really... I don't know how well they capture how bad the grandparents are.
I wrote down in my notes, I feel like Kathy Bates exacerbated the situation. Like, the grandparents are initially just like, and don't get me wrong, they abandoned their child. Like, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of bad blood. But they're like, so do you go to Sunday school? And she's like, and then Kathy Bates is suddenly just like, she never goes to Sunday school. She's Jewish. And they're like, whoa. We were just trying to. And then Benny Safdie comes in. He's like, you're ruining everything, Mom. And then, like, Rachel McAdams runs in. She's like, shut up. Margaret's never going to be Jewish or Christian. She's going to decide for herself. And her parents are just sitting there like, we weren't trying to make trouble. And then, like, I'm like, oh, they don't seem as bad. And I felt kind of bad for them.
They seem almost harmless. Rachel McAdams accepts their hugs goodbye, which she should, because they didn't really do that much. Like, I'm glad they're leaving, but
I'll say this. When they first show up and they're first coming into the house and we've got the first few scenes with them, it is so awkward.
It made me very tense. Yeah.
It is. My skin was crawling watching
I felt
this.
Bad. And that is a specific, I've met those parents a lot. I mean, a lot of the books we talk about don't really cover religion a lot. I was raised evangelical. Not Seventh Day, not Southern Baptist, but still evangelical. And I have met these people a lot of times. I've met the people who are presented here and in the book a lot of times. But this is part of the defanging, I would say. And also making this a Kathy Bates problem is kind of a weird choice to me.
It's interesting. I get why they did it. You want to have, I mean, just dramatically in the book, the blow up happens with the parents, and it's clearly the grandparents' fault.
Yes.
Then Kathy Bates shows up, and everyone feels better. And I can see why, from a dramatic standpoint, they're like, we gotta get these guys together. We've got to get them all in the same room and let the sparks fly. But instead, to me, it just, like I said, it makes it seem like, it's a Kathy Bates. Like, she's the loud grandma, and I can't believe you ruined everything, Mom.
Well, also, in this case, this also makes it a problem with the parents, where she's also mad at her parents because they are, Margaret's parents are stepping in and speaking for her. She's very upset about it. And to me, that does help the moment with Rachel McAdams land, one of my favorite moments in the movie, where they're just quietly sitting on the couch together. And Rachel McAdams has a very nice line about how exhausting it is to try so hard all the time.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that Margaret has been doing the whole movie on a 12 or 11-year-old scale, and Rachel McAdams has been doing on an adult scale. So it works. That works for me. Yeah. I don't know if this is how I wanted it to happen.
And to me, it's a screenplay and a structure issue.
Oh, yeah.
Most
and this
of the
is
problems...
also like this feels very screenwriting-y, though. Like, they needed to she needed to put the pieces together in order to get to this inevitable, like, mother-daughter moment conclusion.
I think my disappointment in the movie, and again, I like the movie. Like, I'm not like saying like, I think this is a bad movie. How dare they? Oh, and also there is a Judy Blume cameo. It's 1 second long.
Oh, I loved it though. She's walking a dog.
She's walking a dog, and she looks like she's never been on screen before. Like, I was like, I don't know how in 1 second, even if I didn't know that was Judy Blume, I would go, that woman's never been an extra. Like, she just looks wrong. In any case, I guess the reason I was disappointed is I was going in, I was hoping it wouldn't be so married to the, like, I was like, let's see this book translated through the eye of a screenwriter who already has her own voice. I wanted a little more, like, throw in, like, flesh it out, make it live a little bit more. I think it's a testament to her direction and her and the filmmaking and everything that it lives beyond the screenplay and beyond the structure, because I think the screenplay is the weakest part, and unfortunately the screenplay is, are you there, God, it's me, Margaret. It's just the book. And I feel like books are simple. This could have done to me with a bit more zhuzh, like mix it up a little bit, because these are all phenomenal actors. Even the grandparents are really good at playing their roles.
It's a lot of people doing a lot with a little, and when I say that they're given a little, that is not a knock on the screenplay. It's just that they are not a huge part of it.
Right.
Like, because like I mentioned way up top, Philip Leroy, the boy they all have a crush on, is so funny in his scenes, because he's like this, he's 12, but he's a Casanova. Like, he's so, like, the way he swaggers into a room, the way he kisses Margaret, like he knows what he's doing when he doesn't, is so, it's very funny. And the kid who plays Moose, what can we say about him that we have?
My problem is that Philip doesn't look like the not sexy, but like the boy that all the girls are attracted to, who thinks he's all that, from 1970.
No, he looks like it from now. Yeah.
He looks, his hair and everything. I was like, what is going on? Did these people not have a magazine? Like,
Moose looks like he's from 1970.
Moose looks like he's from 1970. Moose looks like a Bad News Bear.
Moose has very tightly like springy hair, and he like he's always wearing a too big polo shirt. Really good stuff.
But I'm sorry, we were going to discuss Sims May as Norman Fisher.
Also really funny, good stuff there.
A little boy. This is like his only real acting credit, and a little boy who, I don't know if you ever watched. I hate to invoke this horrible man's name, but I don't know if you ever watched The Cosby Show.
Not a lot.
There was one of Rudy Huxtable's friends was a little boy named Kenny, and the whole joke was that he was very large and he never spoke, but he had this face, this sort of like impassive face that you never really knew what was going on behind his eyes. He was just always like that kid who was just always sitting there, and you look up, he's staring at you. What?
Yeah.
That is exactly the vibe that this kid, Sims May, gives as the... he's not, like, funny because they're not making fun of the fact that he's a large boy, Norman. He's just weird. Like,
it has more to do with that. Like, did you watch Hey Arnold at all?
I did not.
Okay, there's a kid who is just always breathing heavily and kind of like just off camera, and they'll cut to him because he's weird and like gives like he has this air about him that is a little unsettling but always funny when they cut to him. Mm-hmm. It's that like this is a bit of a trope. This is often like at a kid's show. There's the one weird kid, and he really embodies that for me. This kid.
They pull some punches with like the party doesn't devolve into food fighting. There's none of that happens in the party. They mostly just cut very quickly to spin the bottle. I had a few issues with the fact that this little boy, this weirdo little boy, Norman Fisher, has put together a banger playlist. But I'm like, did he make a reel-to-reel? Because how did he put this playlist together? This isn't one record, but it goes seamlessly from song to song. And I'm like, this isn't a compilation album.
It's not the 70s, really.
Right.
This basement is the 70s.
Right.
This menu is the 70s. There's
the sliding door on the bathroom is the 70s. That thing
really
is amazing.
Good stuff there. Just like some rapid fire detail for you. Janie and Margaret going pad shopping, having to buy them from like a reedy teenage boy, and Margaret nervously throwing Tic Tacs in the last minute, and then the two of them just dissolving into giggles once they get out of the store, and Janie saying, "Why the Tic Tacs?" is just like really good. Like, that's the kind of thing like that was in the script, but the way they play it off, it just feels so natural. Oh, these kids.
We get all the period talk. We get them looking at a cross section of a penis in an anatomy book. We find out that periods smell like monkey bars.
Gretchen says that the penis looks like a thumb, and it
looks
funny.
like a thumb.
Them all looking at the Playboy while Nancy reads it out loud, really funny.
But I will say that at times the movie almost feels like a trailer. It's going so fast.
It does move fast. It's a short movie. It's an hour and 45 minutes.
And I feel like I would gladly lose the Rachel McAdams stuff if I got more of the girls. Like, I get why they were showing that, but Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret isn't about her mom. It's about this little girl. But this is what they did. This is what Kelly Freeman Craig did with Edge of 17. You get mostly the story of Haley Steinfeld, but then you get this look at her mom, like what her mom is going through psychologically. And it has this amazing resolution to her story with her mom that is done over 2 texts that just is like a gut punch in that movie. And it's perfect. But I feel like she was like, we've got to give Rachel McAdams, let's give her story some room to breathe. But I was like, I loved how it was played out. I thought it was performed and directed really well. And Rachel McAdams is an amazing actor, but I didn't need it in this movie. I wanted more of Margaret. I wanted more Margaret.
So what you're describing, I think, is something that could potentially be a better movie. I think what we have on our hands is a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm comfortable with that. Like, I'm okay with that. I would watch a series about these girls. Like, I want a show about these girls.
I was also watching it going, oh, I want this to be the Babysitter's Club.
I had that thought, like, when I left last night, where, I was thinking about the movie. I think even this morning, I was thinking, I feel like there were always things we could really nitpick about a Babysitter's Club episode. And I'm not saying that they were bad. I'm just saying that these girls are so good and they fit so well together. And there are always standout performances in the Babysitter's Club, of course. Like, consistently, there was always an MVP. Here, it's everyone. It's just everyone.
But I'm like, can you imagine, like, those 4 girls and maybe I'm looking at this cast list. Oh, by the way, somebody out there, please fill out the Wikipedia article for this movie because it has nothing on it. And the cast list on IMDb doesn't even have the grandparents listed, but it does have Olivia Williams as Witch and Mackenzie Joy Potter as Mama Bunny, which I guess maybe are a couple of extra kids whose parents went into IMDb Pro and like put their kids' identities on this because it's really a weird IMDb. But yeah, you throw these kids, you have Moose playing Logan. You've got a Babysitter's Club movie that I would go see twice.
He's not a ghost boy anymore.
He would not be a ghost. He'd be the boy of everyone's dreams. Aiden Wojtak, his song. I don't know. This is like the first credit for so many of these kids. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. These aren't Hollywood kids.
Oh no, not at all.
I love it so much. Yeah, like I feel like I was disappointed in a lot of the movie, but I think what I said to someone was I felt like it was slightly less than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. I felt like every part of this movie is so well done. I wish it had added up to a 5-star movie. It didn't quite make it there for me. I have high hopes for movies.
I had middling hopes, and it exceeded them. So there
exceeded your everything. So put those two things together.
Yeah, it's not perfect. There are things about it that I think are great. I think it's solidly good, and I'm happy about that. And it's nice that we've been watching things consistently for a little bit while here that I really like. This ain't no Bridge to Terabithia. This is it's a movie that I would watch if it came up on TV on a Saturday.
This ain't no Radio Rebel.
I mean, what is though?
What is? I don't know. Maybe I Soul Young as Laura Danker is a Radio Rebel because she's clearly in high school.
At least.
At least, yeah. When she walks in and Margaret's like, "Is that our teacher?" I was like, "Well, that makes sense."
I actually thought for a second maybe they gender swapped the teacher when she walked in, even though I knew what was going on.
Right.
It's fully aware and yet a misdirect. My final note on this movie: Margaret wears a button-down shirt that is very subtle in its Looney Tunes branding. It has like the little faces of the Looney Tunes.
It's Marvin the Martian and Tweety Bird. And that took me out of the movie so much because I was like, I don't know if those kinds of shirts existed in
They didn't, and I want it. I want that shirt.
I was going to look up and see if it exists in real life, but I was also like, they didn't brand like this in 1970.
No.
If they put cartoon characters on something, it would be like a big ugly patch on a 4-year-old's jumpsuit, not this like subtle, tastefully done like graphic design line art of Marvin the Martian and Tweety Bird. But yeah, it's a pretty cool shirt.
It's really cool.
But it looks like something you get from like an Etsy shop or something.
Oh, absolutely. I love it.
What do you know Benny Safdie from?
Licorice Pizza.
Oh, okay.
And directing.
Sense.
I mean,
yeah, okay.
But
not from the Obi-Wan
he's much more
Kenobi
affable
series.
in this than I mean, he's a politician in Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
So he's charming, but very surface level.
Yeah.
Here, he's just like, oh, cool, perfect dad, perfect husband, great.
Right. Because he directed what was his
Uncut
other?
Gems, yeah.
Yeah. So
okay. So this movie. Yeah. What are we talking about in the future? Let's talk about that later.
we'll talk about that off of mic. It might be time for us to take a little bit of a break.
I think that
and sort of get our
like
because we spent a lot of time Hunger Gaming, and
this was a nice palate cleanser. I would say it was a nice.
Even though, of course, we were dragged back into the horrific massacre in Mockingjay Part 2 just by having to watch that little girl.
If only for a moment.
over and over again declare herself to be the next haver of a period. I guess that's
all right. Pizza Toast Pod, Gmail, Twitter. What are we saying goodbye to? Tic Tacs.
Let's say goodbye to our teenage softies.
Yes. That's the menstrual pad company that they endorse throughout this movie. Okay. Goodbye, teenage softies.
Goodbye, teenage softies.